How is everybody doing tonight? This is going to be a long one. I don't know how much time this will take, but it's the most pages we've ever done. What we are going to do is go through all of the notes from the English classes that I taught actually, it's not really one day, it's a couple of days. I didn't do all of them, but I combined some of the more interesting ones. The levels will range from beginner to advanced, and we will talk about pronunciation, grammar topics, and we will also talk about vocabulary. Now, I hope if you're watching this, I hope if you have questions that you will ask in the chat if you're watching this live right now. I really do want you to ask questions. But if nobody asks questions, that's okay. What I'll do is I'll just try to remember the conversations that we had during the class, and we'll do it that way. Okay, but I really do want you to ask questions if you have questions. Okay, now the first class was a very basic class, and I always start my very basic classes in the same way. We do a little exercise, a little warm-up exercise. So we'll do that right now together. And you can see the three sentences here, number 1, number 2, and number 3. The first sentence is, let's read this together. Yesterday was Wednesday, March 20th. Yesterday was Wednesday, March 20th. Number 2 is, today is Thursday, March 21st. Today is Thursday, March 21st. And sentence number 3 is, tomorrow will be Friday, March 22nd. Tomorrow will be Friday, March 22nd. Now let's return to number 1. I am going to ask you a question, so I want you to listen very carefully to my question, okay? Was yesterday Friday, March 20th? Was yesterday Friday, March 20th? Was yesterday Friday, March 20th? How will you answer that question? How will you tell me no? No. No, yesterday was not. No, yesterday wasn't. No, yesterday wasn't Friday. No, yesterday wasn't Friday, March 20th. Now listen to my next question. What day? What day was? What day was yesterday? What day was yesterday? Give me the correct answer. Yesterday was Wednesday, March 20th. Yesterday was Wednesday, March 20th. Now let's go to number 2. Listen to my question. Is today Saturday, March 21st? Is today Saturday, March 21st? Is today Saturday, March 21st? How will you answer no to that question? No, today. No, today is not. No, today's not. No, today isn't. No, today isn't. No, today isn't Saturday, March 21st. No, today isn't Saturday, March 21st. How will you make a what day question? What day? What day? What day is? What day is today? What day is today? And what is the correct answer? Today is Saturday. Today is Saturday, March 21st. Today is Saturday, March 21st. Now let's move on to sentence number 3. How would you ask a yes-no question? Ask me tomorrow Monday. How will you do that? How will you say tomorrow Monday, March 22nd? Tomorrow Monday, March 22nd. How will you make that question? Will tomorrow be Monday? Will tomorrow be Monday, March 22nd? Will tomorrow be Monday, March 22nd? How will you answer no? Answer no to that question. No, tomorrow. No, tomorrow will not. No, tomorrow will not be. No, tomorrow won't be. No, tomorrow won't be Monday, March 22nd. No, tomorrow won't be Monday, March 22nd. Make a what day question. How would you ask a what day tomorrow be? What day will tomorrow be? What day will tomorrow be? And the correct answer is Monday. Tomorrow will be, that's how it sounds in spoken English. Tomorrow will be, tomorrow will be Friday, March 22nd. Tomorrow will be Friday, March 22nd. If you have problems making these questions, I think later in this video we will have another beginner, and this girl, she's very young. I think she's 12 or 13. She's very good. She's very good at this. But I have another beginner who makes a lot of mistakes, and I think I have her later in the video. So if you have problems making these questions, if you're confused, we will look at her mistakes and maybe we can learn something from them. Okay, so don't worry if that was difficult, because I think we will talk about it more later. I think I copied that. I don't remember. Okay, and actually this girl, she's very good. So we decided to make it a little bit more difficult. So here's a sentence. This again is the same pattern: yesterday, today, tomorrow, past, present, future. But it's a little bit more advanced. You walked yesterday. You walked yesterday. Can you repeat that sentence? You walked yesterday. How will you make a yes/no question with you walked yesterday? You walked yesterday. And remember, if you have questions, please ask in the chat. I'm very happy if you ask questions. Don't feel like you're interrupting the class. I hope you ask questions. You walked yesterday. Did you walk? Did you walk yesterday? Did you walk yesterday? How will you answer no? No, I didn't. No, I didn't walk. No, I didn't walk yesterday. No, I didn't walk yesterday. No, I didn't walk yesterday. Now, this is where it becomes more complicated. We're going to make a what you do question. What you do yesterday. How do you make that question? What you do yesterday. What did you do? What did you do yesterday? What did you do yesterday? Oh, I thought I had the answer here. There's no answer. Let's see. How about go to school? How would you say I go to school yesterday? I went to school. I went to school. I went to school yesterday. I went to school yesterday. All right. Now for number 2, which is talking about today, we are going to use present progressive. That is the verb to be in the present plus ing. Because when we talk about today, that really is now. And you use present progressive when you talk about now or the future. And you can use both of those for talking about today. So usually, if you're talking about activities for today that didn't happen, you would use present progressive. So our sentence is, you are watching a movie today. You are watching. You're watching. You're watching a movie. You're watching a movie today. You're watching a movie today. How will you make a yes/no question with that sentence? You're watching a movie today. Are you? Are you watching? Are you watching a? Are you watching a? Are you watching a? Are you watching a movie today? Are you watching a movie today? How will you answer no? No. No, I. No, I am. No, I am not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not watching. No, I'm not watching a movie. No, I'm not watching a. No, I'm not watching a. No, I'm not watching a movie today. No, I'm not watching a movie today. How will you make a what do question? What do today? What do today? What are you doing? What are you? What are you doing? What are you doing today? That's a very common question. What are you doing today? What are you doing today? Okay, and her answer, I told you, she's a young girl. She said, I'm watching Willy Wonka today. I am watching Willy Wonka today. I'm watching Willy Wonka today. Okay, let's see. Oh. And then we changed it because that is a movie. So we said, I'm doing my homework. I'm doing my homework. I'm doing my homework today. I'm doing my homework today. All right. And to finish the pattern, we also talked about the future. So for number 3, we have you will work tomorrow. You will work tomorrow. How will you make a yes/no question with that sentence? You will work tomorrow. Will you? Will you work? Will you work tomorrow? Will you work tomorrow? How will you answer no? No, I will not. No, I won't. No, I won't work. No, I won't work tomorrow. No, I won't work tomorrow. Can you make a what you do tomorrow question with will? We'll use will. What you do tomorrow. What? What will you? What will you? What will you? What will you do? What will you do tomorrow? What will you do tomorrow? Let's see. And the answer is go to school. Go to school. I will go. I'll go. I'll go to school. I'll go to school tomorrow. I'll go to school tomorrow. I'll go to school tomorrow. Okay. And we continued with this. We continued making questions, talking about the past, the present, and the future. So let's continue that. Here's a sentence. Listen to the sentence and then try to repeat what I say. So don't read. Try not to read this until you think you understand what I'm saying. You studied on the weekend. You studied on the, you studied on the, you studied on the, you studied on the weekend. You studied on the weekend. You studied on the weekend. Can you make a yes/no question with that sentence? You studied on the weekend. Did you? Did you? Did you? Did you study? Did you study on the? Did you study on the weekend? Did you study on the weekend? Did you study on the weekend? Answer no. How do you answer no to that sentence, that question? No, I. No, I didn't. No, I did not. No, I didn't. No, I didn't study on the weekend. No, I didn't study on the weekend. What did you make a what you do question? What did you do? What did you do? What did you do on the weekend? Now, originally, I think she said something like, I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing. But in English, you have to say, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything on the weekend. I didn't do anything on the weekend. Oh, Hadi is here. Hi, Hadi. We are going to... I hope you're ready for a long English class. We're starting with beginners, so this might be a little boring for you at first, but we will be doing some interesting, more advanced things in a little while. But this might be interesting for you, and I think somehow it looks like suddenly we've switched to another class. Okay, well, I don't know what happened. I guess I didn't copy all of her class from my notes because it seems that we're jumping to another class here. I remember this is from a different class. But let's talk about this. This is a very interesting thing. Can you see on the chart we have column A and column B? And then we have the numbers 1,000. 1,000. But you know, in English, if you look at the second number, which is 1,100, okay, if I ask you to read that number, probably you would say, oh, 1,100. But in the thousands, when you have a double zero at the end of a number, it's extremely common that instead of saying 1,100, everyone says 1,100. That's a very normal thing. That's a very typical thing. That's something that it's very important to practice, because that's nobody, no native speaker will say 1,100. They always say 1,100. The next number is 1,200. How do you say that? That's a double zero in the thousands. So most people would say 1,200. 1,200. That's more typical than saying 1,200. How about the next number, 1,300? Okay, that's how you might say it, but a native speaker probably would call that 1,300. 1,300. How about the next number? What is that? That's 1,400. But how do you think, what is the alternative way of saying this number? 1,400. 1,400. That's very typical, very normal way to say that number. How about the next number? That's 1,500. 1,500. But what is the alternative way to say that number? What is a more typical way? 1,500. 1,500. How about the next number? 1,600. 1,600. What is the more typical alternative way to say that number? 1,600. 1,600. Okay, how about the next number? We've got 1,700. And what is a more typical way to say that number? 1,700. 1,700. And the next number, 1,800. How would you say that? What is a more typical way to say that double zero in the thousands? 1,800. Finally, what is the next number? We've got 1,900. And what is the alternative way of saying that number? 1,900. Yes, this is another class because I remember she was having difficulty with the idea of first, second, third. So we went through that. So let's go through that first. So we have number one. If you're counting, you say one. But if you're organizing things, you would say first. Okay, and if you say two, when you're organizing things in order, you say second. And we have the number three. But when you are putting things in a particular order, you would say third. 4 is fourth. 5 is fifth. That's difficult for people to say. You say fifth, and then you stop, and then you say f. So it's fifth, 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 fifth. The next number is also a little bit difficult to pronounce. 6, 6. Same thing. You say 6, and then you stop, and then you say 6. 6. Sixth. Sixth. The next one's pretty easy. 7th. And the next one, 8th. And finally, 9th. Okay, now one thing a very common problem that people have is that when they're saying the number 13, sometimes people think they're saying 30. Or when you're saying 14, that could sound like 40, or the other way around also. They seem like very different words, but really the difference, let me just see if I can move this down one. looks better. So they look like very different numbers. When you spell them out, they look very different. So it seems like, why doesn't anyone understand me? Why, when I say 30, do people think I'm saying 13? And the secret is that you have to put the emphasis, the stress, all of the power on a particular syllable. When you're saying a number in the teens, like 1-3, you have to say 13. You put all of the emphasis on teen. And if you're saying 30, it's the opposite. You say 30. 30. If you reverse it, it sounds like the other number. Here, let me say 30, but I'll say the wrong stress. 30. 30. And people will hear 1-3 if you do that. Same thing if you say 1-3 with the wrong emphasis. 13. Wait, 13. It sounds like 30. So you have to put the emphasis on the right syllable. When you're saying a number in the teens, it's the word teen. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And when you're saying the zeros, 30, 40, 50, you put the emphasis on the first syllable. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. It's a very common problem that people have. Okay, now we were practicing some very basic sentences. We talk on the phone every day. We talk on the phone every day. Can you repeat that sentence? We talk on the phone every day. We talk on the phone every day. How will you make a yes/no question with we talk on the phone every day? We talk on the phone every day. Do we? Do we talk? Do we talk on the? Do we talk on the phone? Do we talk on the phone every day? Do we talk on the phone every day? How will you answer no to that question? No, we. No, we don't. No, we don't. No, we don't talk. No, we don't talk on the. No, we don't talk on the phone. No, we don't talk on the phone every day. Now let's say, but tonight, so that would be in the future. Not really, it's already night, at least for me, but let's pretend this was in the morning when we did this class. So let's pretend it's future. But tonight, let's use will. We'll use will. So tonight we will. Tonight we'll. Tonight we'll talk. Tonight we'll talk on the phone. Tonight we'll talk on the phone. No, we don't talk on the phone every day, but tonight we'll talk on the phone. Okay, our new sentence is we will talk on the phone tonight. We'll talk on the phone tonight. We'll talk on the phone tonight. How will you make a yes/no question with that sentence? We will talk on the phone tonight. We will. We'll talk. We'll talk. We will talk. We'll talk on the phone. We'll talk on the phone tonight. How will you make a yes/no question with that sentence? Will we? Will we? Will we talk? Will we talk on the phone? Will we talk on the phone tonight? Will we talk on the phone tonight? Let's answer no. No. No, we will not. No, we will not. No, we will not talk. No, we won't talk. We won't. We will not. We won't. We won't talk on the phone. We won't talk on the phone tonight. We won't talk on the phone tonight. Now let's say, but yesterday, how will you say, yesterday we talk on the phone? Talked. Yesterday we talked. Yesterday we talked on the phone. We won't talk on the phone tonight, but yesterday we talked on the phone. We won't talk on the phone tonight, but yesterday we talked on the phone. We talked on the phone yesterday. We talked on the phone yesterday. Yesterday we talked on the phone. We won't talk on the phone tonight, but we talked on the phone yesterday. Let's see. Seems like there was a problem here. We talked on the phone yesterday. See, this is the statement form. We talked on the phone yesterday. And the question form is, did we talk on the phone? And then the answer, no, we didn't talk on the phone yesterday. Oh, because I asked her, I said, can you make a when question? So, okay, we've got, we talked on the phone yesterday. Make a yes-no question with that sentence. Did we talk? Did we talk on the phone? Did we talk on the phone yesterday? And how would you answer no? No, we didn't. No, we didn't talk on the phone. No, we didn't talk on the phone yesterday. Then I asked her to make a when question. When talk on phone, in the past. And can you try that? Can you try to make a when we talk on the phone, but in the past? Okay, her answer was when we talked on the phone. But this is not correct. Because if you're making a question like what, when, who, how, why, you have to use the question form. Or most of the time, not always. There are some exceptions. We will talk about an exception later in the video, actually. But, so this was not correct, what she said. She said, when we talked on the phone. That was her question. And then I was showing her, no, you have to use the question form. Can you see here the question form? Did we talk? When did we talk? When did we talk on the phone? When did we talk on the phone? That is the question form. And the answer was last week. We talked on the phone last week. We talked on the phone last week. Okay. I think this is, yes, okay. Now we're moving on to a different class. Can you believe that? That took a whole hour. I guess we talked about a lot of other things too. Those are the things that I wrote. Okay, now this class, the next class that I did, this guy's pretty advanced. He's been studying English all of his life. So the area that I felt like he could improve the most was his pronunciation. So for this class, all we did was focus on pronunciation. We read an article with this was from an advanced English book with advanced vocabulary. So there might be some vocabulary to learn here. I don't remember. But mostly the purpose of this was to work on pronunciation. So we will work on pronunciation here. So these are sentences taken from the article that we were reading. And the first sentence is, the outsourcing of production costs to low-wage countries. Okay, that's our phrase. And I've been kind of obsessed with the length of vowel sounds recently, because I've noticed that this is, if you pay attention to the length of the vowel sound in the word, it can improve your pronunciation like magic. It's been really effective. And so I've been pushing that a lot in my classes recently. But before we start doing that, before we start analyzing the length of vowel sounds, I noticed a problem. Because this first word, this first phrase, the outsourcing, shows us a problem. Now I've got two words written here. We've got number 1 and number 2. You can, if you're looking at the screen, you can see number 1 and number 2. Listen to me say number 1, and then listen to me say number 2, but pay attention to the word the. Do they sound the same in these two words? The car, the apple. The car, the apple. They sound very different. When a word starts with a vowel sound, the changes to the. So the, that's a very short sound. the. But when a word starts with a vowel sound, it becomes very long. It becomes the apple, the car, the apple. Can you hear that? The is very short, and it's very long and big. The apple, the car. Okay, so that was our first issue, because when you say outsourcing and you put the word the in front of it, how does that sound? Can you do that? The outsourcing. The outsourcing. The outsourcing of production costs to low-wage countries. Now let's take a look at this phrase, low wage. If you don't know, wage means pay, how much people make. So low wage means people don't make very much money, low pay. If we look at that word low, what do you think about the vowel sound? Is that a long vowel sound or is that a short vowel sound? We're talking about duration. Low. That's really long. Actually, it's at least two sounds. Low. So that's two vowel sounds together. It should be long. Low. And you have to give a kiss when you do it. See? Watch my lips. Low. See, I'm giving a kiss. Low. Low. And then we have another word, wage, and the beginning of that word is all vowel sounds. Wage. That's three vowel sounds. Wage. Wage. So when you think about it, if you say that phrase, it's all vowel sounds in the middle. Low wage. Low wage. Low wage. Most people, if they're learning English and they try to say that, they make it very short and it becomes extremely hard to understand. Low wage. You have to take your time and you have to say, or you have to try to say all of those sounds. Low wage. I wish I could hear you speaking to see if you're practicing this with me. I would love to hear it, but unfortunately I can't hear you. Okay, so let's move to the next phrase and let's take a look at the length of the vowel sounds in the phrase. The next phrase is does not just reduce costs. All right, now we have does not, does not, does not. So those are two words, two vowel sounds. What do you think? Short, short, long, 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 short. What do you think? I think it's long, short. Does not, does not, does not. It's not, it's possible to say does not, but I think it would be better if you said does not, if you take your time and make that does pretty long. Does not. Not is okay. You can just say not. That's very normal. Does not. Does not. What do you think about the next word? Just. Just. Do you think that's long or short? I think it's long. I think that's long. Just. Imagine my dog is trying to make a little bed for himself. He's scratching on the rug. Just. Just. I think, if you try to say that quickly, just. It doesn't sound, especially if you're putting it with other words, it doesn't sound very clear. Just. Does not just. Can you hear that? That's long, short, long. Does not just. Does not just. Does not just. Let's take a look at the next word. Reduce. Reduce. Two vowel sounds. What do you think about the duration of them? Are they long? Are they short? Reduce. I think it's short, long. Short, long. Reduce. Reduce. Does not just reduce. Does not just reduce. Try to say the phrase, but pay attention to the length of the vowel sounds. Does not just reduce. Now let's look at the next word, which is costs. Costs. What do you think about that vowel sound? Is that short? Is that costs? Or is it costs? It's very big. It's several sounds. Let's see. It's koa. It's three sounds. Koa. Costs. It's maybe more than three. Costs. It's very big. It's a very big sound. And if you try to put a little sound in there, costs, that could be very difficult for people to understand. Costs. Let's try to say the whole phrase, paying very close attention to the length of the vowel sound. Does not just reduce costs. Does not just reduce costs. Does not just reduce costs. See, a lot of people, in a lot of languages, the vowel sound is very small. And they would say like, does not just reduce costs. And it's very hard to understand it if you make them all short. You have to pay attention to which sounds are long in duration. Does not just reduce costs. And then it sounds very beautiful. Really, if you pay attention to this, you'll be amazed. It's like magic. Okay. Now we have, we had the word outsource. And let's see. Well, let's just say the word source. I don't remember our conversation that we had while we were doing this. But let's listen to me say this word source very slowly. Source. That's oh. There's even an at the end. Source. Source. If you try to say this with a small sound, source, it's hard to understand that word. Source. It's not source. It's source. Or. Source. 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 Okay, now this person, he was from Spain. And it's very hard for Spanish people because they have a letter Z and they have an S, but they pronounce it very differently in Spain. And we were talking about the word just, and he said, oh, that sounds like the music. And I said, oh, jazz? He said, yeah. Oh, but there's so many differences between the word just and the word jazz. Maybe not to the Spanish ear, but to my ear. So let's look at the difference between the word just and jazz. Now, notice the way that I'm spelling just in the parentheses is like A-H. Because you say A, but then you have to push out some air also, which is the H. Just. That's a funny exaggeration. Just. But that's really what you have to do. Maybe not so strongly. So, just. It's kind of short, but you still push out air. Well, let's say it's long. Just. Also, in that S, which in Spain sounds like sh. So he would say jush, like that. But so I was telling him, no, you have to sound like a snake. You have to be a snake. A snake says s. That's the sound of a snake. So you have to sound like a snake when you do it. Just s, like a snake. Just. Okay. So now the vowel sound in number 2 is extremely different from the vowel sound in number 1. And I can only give you the North American pronunciation, the American pronunciation. If you go to the UK or Australia, this is one letter that will sound very different from the way that I pronounce it. So in the United States, this vowel sound, which is very long, is a, jazz, jazz, a. So number one is and number two is a, jazz. And the final sound at the end of that word is the sound of an insect. An insect like a bee or a mosquito. Zzz. The final sound of number one is a snake. Sss. But the final sound of number two is an insect. Zzz. Like a bee or a mosquito. So number two is jazz. Jazz. And number one is just like a snake. So here's number one, just. Number two, jazz. Can you see they're very different? But to some people, especially people learning English, maybe they would be confused between those two words. They sound similar to people learning English, but not to people who speak English every day. Okay, now let's look at another phrase from the article and analyze the vowel sounds. It can also reduce the quality. It can also reduce the quality. It can. It can. Now, it's funny because the word can, let me say the word can, isolated. Can. That's actually the same word as in jazz. That's the funny a sound. A-e-a. A-ya. A-ya. A-e-a. A-ya. Can. So it's long. But it's such a common word that in conversation, when people are talking, it becomes very short. Can. It sounds like can. It can. It can, if you say it slowly and you're very careful, it sounds like this. It can. It can. It can. But when people are talking, it sounds like this. It can. Very short. So some of these words are flexible. Sometimes they're long and sometimes they're short. Usually very common words. If they're pronounced long, they become short in conversation because it's easier to talk that way. It can, but let's say it conversationally. It can. Now let's look at the next word. Also. Also. That first letter is tricky. I think because of the L, it becomes kind of long because it's hard to pronounce an L unless you pronounce some kind of vowel sound in front of it, like ooh. I think it sounds like owl, like a W. Owl. Also. Okay, so it should be short, but because of the L, it's long. Owl. Also. What about so? So. That's actually two sounds. So it must be long. So this word, this very common word, is long. Also. It can also, you hear the length of those? Short, long. Short, long. It can also reduce. What do you think about that word? Reduce. I think that when people are saying it most of the time, it's short, long. Reduce. It is possible to say reduce. That's possible. But most of the time, I think people would say reduce. Short, long. Let's try to say all of the phrase so far. It can also reduce. It can also reduce. Short, short, long, long, short, long. It can also reduce. And then we have the. That's very short. The. It can also reduce the. It can also reduce the. It can also reduce the quality. Qual. Qual. That's obviously long. Qual. Qual. Don't try to make that short. That must be long. Qual. There's a lot of sounds. Wall. It's like wow. Qual. Quale. What about le? Is that long or short? Le. Quale. Quale. That's short. Quale. Long, short. Long, short. Quale. Quality. 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 In North America, T's sometimes sound like D's. Quality. That D is long. So that's long, short, long. Quality. Quality. Let's try to say the entire phrase. It can also reduce. It can also reduce the. It can also reduce the quality. It can also reduce the quality. It can also reduce the quality. I promise you, if you pay attention to this, your pronunciation will improve like magic. Now let's look at the next phrase. Of the goods produced. Of the. Of the. What do you think about that? Are those long sounds or short sounds? Of the. Of the. Those are short. Short, short. Short, short. Of the. Of the. What about the next word? Goods. Goods. This is another one of these H situations where at the end you have to push out some air. Goods. Goods. There's air coming out at the end. So it's kind of like UH. Ugh. Goods. And I think that's long. Goods. Of the goods. Of the goods. Short, short, long. Of the goods. Let's take a look at the final word. Produced. Produced. That's short, long. Short, long. Produced. Produced. Short, long. Short, long. Produced. Of the goods produced. Of the goods produced. Okay, and then we got into a conversation because, and I think I've actually done this in another video, but it doesn't hurt to repeat it. If you say number one, if you can see on the screen, we've got number one, to produce, that's a verb. And you can see the pronunciation in the parentheses. Produce. Produce. Short, long. That means like manufacture or make something. But if you pronounce it like number two, which is a noun, number one is a verb, number two is a noun. If you make both of the syllables long, produce, that is a noun, and that means vegetables and fruits, things you grow. So if you go to the grocery store and you say, where is the produce section? They will direct you to the place where they sell fresh vegetables and fruits. So that's produce, produce. So that's pretty funny that if you pronounce it short, long, produce, that means make. But if you pronounce it long, long, produce, that's fruits and vegetables at the store. Okay, now let's take a look at the next phrase in the article, which is defective products can result in recall costs. Defective products can result in recall costs. Defective, defective, defect, 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 defect. What do you think about that? Defect. Are those long or short sounds? Defect, defect. Those are short. What about tive? Defective, defective. Or maybe it's all short. I think it's all short. Defective, defective. Yeah, those are all short sounds. Defective. Defective. Okay, let's take a look at the next word. Products. Products. Prada. 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 Those are both short. Prada. Products. Defective products. That's short, 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 short. Defective products. All right, now the word can, technically it's long. Can. 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 But when in conversation, it becomes very short. Can. Defective products can. Defective products can. Defective products can. That's very nice pronunciation. If you say defective products can, that's preferable. You should talk like that. That sounds nice. But unfortunately, most people will say defective products can. Defective products can result. 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 What do you think about that? Result. Result. Short, long. Short, long. Result. Defective products can result. Defective products can result in. In. What do you think about that word, in? That's very short. Result in. Result in. Short, long, short. Result in. Result in. Result in. Recall. Recall. Do you know what that means? Recall? That's when, maybe we'll talk about this in a minute. It's coming up. You can see number 1 and number 2 below the phrase. But recall, when you say it like that, long, long, recall, recall, that is when a company, this happens with cars. Imagine a car company sells a car to many people, but all of these cars have one problem. Have you ever seen that before? And the car company says, oh, please return your car to the factory and we will fix it because it's a big problem. This is a recall. Long, 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 long. And my student says, oh, but doesn't that mean memory? Yes, it means memory if you say short, long. Recall. Recall. That means remember. Recall. But if you say long, long, recall, recall, that means there's a problem with the product and you have to return the product to the company and they will fix it, or they will give you money or something. So that's kind of a funny thing. Okay. Oh, and then for some reason, oh, okay, this is a new class. All right, so that's the end of one class. And then we're moving on here to a new class. And again, this guy, I would say maybe he's like upper intermediate. And again, we were looking at some problems in a book. He's a Turkish guy, and we were talking about Turkish food. And I can't remember the name of the thing because right now it's Ramadan. And I was saying, oh, when Ramadan is finished, will you eat a lot of food when it finishes? And he says, oh, yes. And I said, what do people usually eat at the end of Ramadan? And he says, well, we miss breakfast and I can't remember the name of the thing. It's like a bread. It's like a bread. Let me see if I can find a picture. It won't be of the thing he said because I can't remember the name of the thing that he said. But I can find something similar, hopefully. The reason I'm telling you this is because I want to talk about a particular word. But I have to show you a picture in order to do it. Okay, so this is not the bread. I can't remember the name of the bread. I think it started with the letter B. But he said, oh, I really love this bread because it's very thin. And I knew when he said it's very thin, he didn't know the right word for it. But you see this bread here? You see how there's like, you can almost see through part of it. This is what we call flaky bread. Flaky, that word flake. Maybe you know, for example, snowflake. So a flake is something very thin, so like a very thin layer of something. So flaky bread has like very thin layers of things, like a Napoleon, like the French pastry, the Napoleon I think is very flaky, or the millefeuille pastry, the French pastry is very flaky. Oh, maybe we can look at that. Let's see. See, this is very, I don't know if you've ever had something like this, but it's extremely flaky. And here, let me show you a disgusting picture. Let's look at a disgusting picture. Flaky skin. So here is some flaky skin. That's flaky skin. Okay, so we were talking about that word flaky because we were talking about some kind of Turkish bread or Turkish pastry. Sahid Khan says hello. Hello, Sahid. How are you doing tonight? Okay, let's go back. Okay, and I think, what was the word? So we were looking at a question in a book, which, we were talking about the word ambitious. Let me write the word ambitious here. Ambitious. And I said, are you an ambitious person? Because that was the question in the book, ambitious. And he said, no, I'm not ambitious. But I knew that wasn't true. I don't think he understands the word ambitious. He's a very ambitious person because in Turkey, he was a very professional person. He was a lawyer. And now he's in the United States working as an Uber driver. And to me, that means he's very ambitious because he's got some idea in his head and he's working very hard to accomplish this idea. And that's what an ambitious person is. An ambitious person wants more, is not happy with their situation and tries to change their situation. So that's ambition. Ambition is having big dreams and working towards it. And so I said, no, I think you are. You are an ambitious person. And he said, no, because ambitious means you hurt people, you don't care about people, you do anything to succeed. And I said, no. That is ruthless. A ruthless person doesn't care about other people. So, for example, a ruthless army or a ruthless manager, this means they will hurt people to succeed. They will do anything to succeed. Ambitious just means you have big dreams and you work really hard for your big dreams. Ambitious is a very positive word. He was thinking about the word ruthless. Ruthless means I don't care about other people. I don't care what happens to other people. I will do anything to make money or to succeed. Okay, I don't know. Okay, let's move on to this interesting phrase here. The phrase get to. Get to. Now, people who are studying English are always very confused by the word get, because if you look up the word get in the dictionary, you will find many definitions. You can use get in many different ways. And here is one way that you can use get to. This must be get to, okay? It's not just get. It's get to plus verb. For example, I asked him, what was something that you enjoyed about being a lawyer? And he said, well, I really enjoyed traveling to many different countries and meeting many interesting people. You can use this phrase get to, which means I'm very lucky, very happy to have this opportunity. So I got to travel to many different countries. I was very lucky and very happy to have the opportunity to travel to these countries. I got to meet interesting people. I was very fortunate. I was very lucky to meet interesting people. I was grateful for the opportunity to meet interesting people. So get to, I guess, is a modal. We were talking about that. Like, what is get to? I think it's a modal because it's like have to, need to. It works in the same way. You use that phrase and then you use a verb, and that means I'm very lucky, very happy for this opportunity. Let's see. It was difficult at first. And he said, he was getting confused, and he was saying, but is that like used to, like get used to, get used to? And I said, no, get used to is like adjusting, becoming comfortable. So, for example, it was difficult at first, but I got used to living in a foreign country. Now I'm comfortable with it. It was difficult. Now I'm comfortable. I got used to. That's different. So I get to travel. I'm lucky to travel. I'm happy to travel. It's great to travel. Compared to I got used to traveling means I'm comfortable with traveling now. Before I wasn't. Okay, let's see. I hope we will get to go to... Okay, we were talking about Disneyland. I don't want to talk about Disneyland. Okay, now let's move on to a very interesting subject. This is a new class. This is a different class. Okay, and we started with a very... This is an advanced person, and this is funny because I can give this problem to somebody who's very advanced, and it always confuses them. Not always, almost always confuses them. So it's a really funny thing that even for... It's a very simple thing, but it confuses even advanced people. Let's take a look at it. Okay, I gave him a sentence. I said, he paid her. First, let's look at two different sentences. Oh, we can't do it that way. Well, we'll go up and down. Okay, here's sentence number one. He paid her. He paid her. That sounds like he paid her in conversation. He paid her. He paid her. Now let's look at another sentence, which is he paid for her. He paid for her. He paid for her. He paid for her. Do you agree that there's a difference between he paid her and he paid for her? Are those different ideas, or do they mean the same thing? They mean different things. They do mean different things. The first one, number one, he paid her. That means that money was transferred. He transferred money to her. He gives money, she receives money. And but in number two, he paid for her. Is she receiving money? Does she receive money? No. She's receiving something, but it isn't money. He's paying for something, and she's receiving that something. So it's very different. The difference between he paid her and he paid for her is very different. So my first point is that the word for is very important. It's very important to the idea of the sentence. Okay. Now, if I ask you, can you make a let's look at sentence number one. He paid her. Can you make a yes, a who is receiving money question? Okay. Now this is tricky because we have two people. We have a person doing the action and we have a person receiving the action. And I want you to make a question, meaning who is receiving the money? You can see some visual help. You can see in number one. Well, actually, I don't want you looking at the answers. Maybe I can move this down. You probably already saw it, but oh well. Let's try this. Okay, so you can see that the her is gray. Okay, so I want you to make a who question about her. How do you make that question? How do you say, who is receiving the money? Ask that question. Can you try that? Who did he pay? Because we have two who's, so it's a little tricky. Who did he pay? And the way that sounds in spoken English is who did he? Who did he pay? 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 Okay, let's bring that back up. Now this is an object question. An object question. Okay. That means who is receiving. We're asking who is receiving. But let's try another question. Let's try a subject question. Okay. So if you look in number 1, I've made her gray. Okay, because we're asking who's receiving. Now let's make a subject question. We're asking about who is performing the action. We know her, she is receiving, but who is doing the action? How do you make that question? How do you make a question where it's who is doing the action? Now, this is difficult for a lot of people. Even advanced people, they have a problem with this. But let's look at it. It's who paid her? Who paid her? Can you see the difference between number 1? Who did he pay? You make the typical, you follow the typical rules of making a question. You use the question form, and then you use who in the front of the sentence. But when you're making a subject question, the rules are different. You don't follow the typical pattern. You don't use the question form. What you do is you substitute. You just use who. You substitute who with you substitute he with who. Who paid her? Who paid her? Who paid her? Who paid her? Now let's try the same thing, but let's do that with our using the preposition for. So let me just move this down. Okay, so now let's try the exact same thing, but we're adding the preposition for, which, remember, we said that's important. We said that it's important to use the word for. He paid for her. He paid for her. How would you make a who object question? Who is receiving the money, or who is receiving the benefit? Who? No, oh, by the way, this is a who for question. Let's do it like this. I'll give you a little hint. I'll give you a little help, okay? Whoops. This is a who for question. Who for? So how would you make that question? Who did he pay for? 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 That's very different from other languages. It's very unusual, very strange. And people are usually quite uncomfortable doing that. But this is the most typical way to ask this question. We have to use the word for, but it stays at the end of the sentence. Who did he pay for? Let me bring up the answer so you can see it written. Sometimes it helps to see it. Who did he pay for? Question form. Who did he pay for? But you leave for at the final part of the sentence. Okay, and now let's go back to the subject. How would you make the subject question with the same sentence? He paid for her. Now we want to know who is doing the action. So let me bring that up here. So we have he paid for her. How do you make a subject question with that idea? It's still the same, okay? When you're making a subject question, you follow a different rule. You just substitute the word he for who. Who paid for her? 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 Okay, now let's talk about one more thing before we do a little exercise. Let me see. I know I have this chart down here. I hope I have this chart. Okay, yeah, I have it down here. It's down at the bottom. Okay. Before we continue with the exercise, let's just talk about one little thing. Okay. Now we have this sentence, John paid Mary. John paid Mary. John paid Mary. if we substitute John and Mary in this sentence, we say he paid her. He paid her. Okay. Now, if we look at another sentence, Mary paid John, Mary paid John, and we substitute, we use the pronouns, it's she paid him. Let me ask you a question. Why in number 1 is Mary her? And why in number 2 is Mary she? What is the reason for that? Why is it that in number 1, John is he, but in number 2, John is him? Why? Because he and she have a receiving form. A receiving form. The receiving form for he is him, and the receiving form for she is her. Let's look at a list of the action form, the doing form, versus the receiving form. The doing form for a female is her. So she is the doing form, the action form, and her is the receiving form. The doing form for it is it, and the receiving form is it. That's easy. The same with you. Both forms are the same, you and you. So if you're doing the action, it's you, and if you're receiving, it's you. And then we have I, that's the doing form, I give, and the receiving form, give me. I want to receive, so I use me. And then we have the doing form for we give, but the receiving form is us, give us. Okay? And finally, we have they as the doing form, they give. But then if we talk about receiving, we have to say give them. Okay? Now, the word who also has a receiving form, and that is whom. Whom. So who gives, give to whom. Okay, so there's the doing form, who gives, and the receiving form, give to whom. Okay, but the problem is that whom is not very common in regular speech. Most people do not use that form when they're talking. Many people do not know how to use that form. They don't use that form, and they don't know how to use that form. So it's pretty formal English, and it's mostly just used in writing, or maybe when you're taking a test. It's good to know how to use this form. So before we do a little bit of an exercise, I don't know how much of an exercise we have here, but before we do that, let's just go back to the original idea of subject-object questions. So if you're going to use the word whom, that's going to always be about objects, receiving. All right. Now remember, when we asked who, oh wait, let's start with this one. If we go back to our original sentence, number 1, he paid her. Okay. Remember, when we made the who is receiving question, we said, who did he pay? Who did he pay? Who did he pay? Who did he pay? It's possible to also say, and more correct, considered more correct, to say whom. Whom did he pay? Whom did he pay? But most people don't talk like that. That's kind of formal, best used for writing more than speaking. You can talk like that, and people will say, oh, you have very fancy English. But most people don't. Now, when we get to using whom with a preposition, it's a little bit different. Okay, remember, in our sentence, he paid for her. He paid for her. When we asked a who question, a who is receiving question, it was a who ... for question. But if you're going to use whom, you should carry the preposition over to the front. So if you want to use the word whom, you should say, for whom did he pay? For whom did he pay? That would be the best way to do that. For whom did he pay? For whom did he pay? For whom did he pay? Okay. So if you have a preposition with your object form, then you should carry the preposition over if you want to use whom. So you can either make a who ... for question, or you can say for whom ... Okay. Let's practice that. Let's practice using that. So this is I don't want you to see the answers if you're looking at the screen. So I'm just moving this down. So let's practice this with an example. And these will have phrasal verbs in them, okay? So our first sentence, try not to look, just listen. I want you to practice listening. So I'm going to say a sentence, and I want you to listen and try to repeat the sentence. They carried out the plans in spite of their competitor. They carried out the plans in spite of their competitor. Carried out the plans in spite of their competitor. Can you get that? They carried out the plans. They carried out the plans. They carried out the plans in spite of their competitor. They carried out the plans in spite of their competitor. Okay, we have this phrasal verb, which is carry out. Have you seen that phrasal verb before? Carry out. Carry out. That means implement or execute, make something happen. So if you're carrying out plans, that means that you are doing the plans. So first you make the plans, you write them down, but then there comes a time when you have to make the plans happen. You have to produce the idea. You have to execute the idea, implement the idea. And this is carry out. Carry out. They carried out the plans in spite of their competitor. They carried out the plans in spite of their competitor. Now, this is a separable phrasal verb. That means you can put the object inside the verb. How would you do that? How would that sound? Can you put the object inside the verb? They carried the plans out. They carried the plans out. They carried the plans out in spite of their competitor. They carried the plans out in spite of their competitor. Okay, now let's make a who object question. Okay, and so actually, this is going to be, I'll give you a little help here. Okay, this is going to be a who ... in spite of question. Let's see, can you see that? Who in spite of. Okay, remember we had like who ... for. This is going to be who ... in spite of. How would you make a who ... in spite of question? Who did they carry out? Who did they carry out the plans? Or who did they carry the plans out? Who did they carry the plans out in spite of? Who did they carry the plans out in spite of? Isn't that weird? That's it's very strange and very unnatural for most people who are learning English, but that would be the most typical way of asking the question. Okay, now let me show you another way of making that question, which probably will make you feel more comfortable, but isn't very typical. And that would be in spite of whom? In spite of whom? How would you make that question using the phrase in spite of whom? In spite of whom? In spite of whom did they? In spite of whom did they carry the plans out? Or in spite of whom did they carry out the plans? In spite of whom did they carry the plans out? In spite of whom did they carry the plans out? Okay, now let's change that. It's a kind of a simple exercise, but also at the same time, it's asking quite a bit of you. Okay, so there's more to this. Let's see. Let me move this up here. Let's change this to a reported speech question. Uh-oh, we're showing the answer here. I don't want you to see the answer. In other words, let's add the phrase, he asked us. He asked us. How would you change that? So I'm not going to explain it to you unless you ask, okay? So if you think the answer is strange, then please leave a comment and I will answer your question. Otherwise, I will assume that you know how to do this, okay? So, but I really want you to ask the question, like, I don't understand why you're doing this. Okay, so let me give you the answer. He asked us, in spite of whom they had carried out the plans. He asked us, in spite of whom they had carried out the plans. Let me. I've got to read the information here because it seems like he asked us in spite of whom they had carried out the plans or carried the plans out. He asked us, who did they carry out the plans in spite of? Okay, I'm not sure. Oh, okay. I'm just lost. But okay, now let's take that same. So if you don't have any questions about that, let's keep going. If you got that right, did you get that right? He asked us, in spite of whom they had carried the plans out. Or was it horribly wrong? That's pretty complicated, actually. So if you got that right, congratulations. If you didn't get it right, leave a comment and I will try to answer the question for you if you have any questions. But if you don't have any questions, and I don't see any right now, let's continue. And let's take that same sentence. They carried out the plans in spite of the competitor. Okay, they carried out the plans in spite of their competitor. And let's make a who subject question. Let's ask about who is doing the action. So we know it's in spite of the competitor, but we want to know who is carrying out the plans. How will you make that question? It follows different rules. Who carried out the plans? Who carried out the plans in spite of the competitor? Who carried out the plans in spite of the competitor? Now let's change that to reported speech. Wait a minute. I've already shown you the answer, but maybe you didn't see it. So let's add, he asked us again. He asked us who had carried out the plans in spite of the competitor. He asked us who had carried out the plans in spite of the competitor. Okay. Now let's move on to a new problem. Let's see. So here's a new sentence. I'm going to say it. I'm not going to show you the sentence yet because I want you to listen and try to repeat what I'm saying as best you can. Okay, so here is the sentence. Listen carefully and try to repeat. She's going to draw up a contract for the new client. She's going to draw up a contract for the new client. So that's just regular spoken English. What am I saying? She's going to draw up a contract for the new client. And there's a phrasal verb in here that maybe you don't know. She's going to draw up a contract for the new client. She's going to draw up a contract for the new client. I'll just say the first part. She's going to draw up. She's going to draw up. She's going to draw up. And remember, if you have questions or if you have doubts, please write in the chat so I can answer your question. I love it when you ask questions. She's going to draw up. She's going to draw up a contract. She's going to draw up a contract for the new client. I'm going to show you the sentence now. Whoops. Okay, let me move the answers down here. Okay, so do you know that phrasal verb draw up? Probably not. It's a pretty unusual phrasal verb. It's usually used in professional settings. Usually it means like making a diagram or making a chart, a very professional thing. So if a lawyer draws up a contract, it means like make a contract. But when you use draw up, I understand it takes a lot of skill, a lot of professional skill to make this thing. So an architect can draw up blueprints. I can't do that. I can't draw up a contract. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe somebody in IT could draw up. I don't know. I don't know too much about IT, but maybe somebody in IT could draw up a, I don't know, something complicated that other people can't do. Writing something complicated that other people can't do. So it can be a pretty handy phrase in professional environments. Draw up. She's going to draw up a contract for the new client. How would you make a who subject question? Okay, now there's some visual help for you because you can see that there are two who's in this sentence. There's the new client and there's she. So we want to make a who subject question. We want to know who is doing the action. How do you make that question? How do you ask that question? Here's the answer. I'll give you the answer. Okay, when you're making a who subject question, you don't have to really change anything. You just substitute the word who for the subject. Who is going to draw? Draw up a. Who's going to draw up a contract? Who's going to draw up a contract for the new client? Okay. Now let's make a they asked her. Let's do a reported speech situation. They asked her. They asked her. Okay, my student said they asked her would. I don't remember what we talked about with that, so let's ignore that. How would you say they asked her? Okay, well, when you're doing reported speech, you change the present to the past. So what we will say is they asked her who was going to draw up a contract for the new client. They asked her who was going to draw up a contract for the new client. Okay, now let's do this again. Let's take the same sentence. She's going to draw up a contract for the new client. But now let's make a who object question. So here's your help. If you look at the sentence on the screen, she's going to draw up a contract for the new client. We want to ask about the new client. We know she is doing the action, but we want to know who is receiving this benefit. How will you make that question? This will be a who for question. Let me just put that up here to help you. Who for? Who for? How would you make a who for question? Who for? Who for? Here's the answer. We'll do the answer. Who is she? Who's she? Who's she going to? Who's she gonna draw up? Who's she gonna draw up a new contract for? Who's she gonna draw up a new contract for? Okay, I know that seems weird. That seems unnatural and strange to you. That's the most common way of doing it, unfortunately. Okay, now probably you're more comfortable making a for whom question. You can do that, but it just sounds a little bit unnatural, a little bit formal, not very typical. Maybe in writing it would be good, but in spoken English, it would sound fancy. People will say, "Oh wow, you have very impressive English," but it isn't very natural these days to use use it this way. But how would you say for whom? Let's make the question with for whom. For whom is she? For whom is she going to? For whom is she going to draw up a contract? For whom is she going to draw up a contract? That's the answer. Let's put that up here so you can see it. For whom is she going to draw up a contract? Okay. And now let's make a reported speech question. Let's add, they asked her. They asked her. When you have reported speech, you change the simple present to past. They asked her for whom she was. They asked her for whom she was going to draw up a contract. I'll put that up here. Again, if there's something about this that confuses you, just ask, and I will be happy to explain it to you. They asked her for whom she was going to draw up a new contract. Okay, and then I think, well, actually, I think this is kind of the end. We never really finished the last part here, so I think this is probably where we will stop for today. Okay, so we had a great class. Thank you for everyone who stayed and watched until the end. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to press the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And I will see you next time with more notes from my classes that I've done. Okay? Goodbye.